everybody, and welcome to Addicted to Loot, the official Addicted to Loot podcast.
The 1/10th to the 110th episode.
Plus one, the 1-1 episode.
The 1-1-1-1-1 episode.
One.
Oh, and it's that time of the week.
Yay.
Get your fix in.
We get together once a week, and we like to hang out and talk about video games, and we like hanging out with you guys and having you listen to us talk about video games, basically.
It's a really one-sided conversation, but we're glad that you're there to listen to us.
What do you guys think about that? That's great. Anyway.
Moving on.
Moving on. We only have actually one news item this week. Oh my god, I didn't even introduce ourselves. Hi, my name is Tom.
And I'm the other guy.
He's the other guy, and we are Addicted to Loot. So we only have one news item this week, but it's a doozy, I think.
It's a big one. I mean, it's been one of those, I feel like it's kind of died off over just for the fact that the PC world has been getting no coverage for this specifically console-dominated game. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, probably a day or two ago, this just explodes out of the nether, and it's been all of the buzz lately.
And what would that game be?
Destiny, I would say, original MMO FPS. Yes, you heard that right. MMO FPS.
BBQ. OMG.
F2S TTP.
WTF.
So Destiny is when it first came out, everyone was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great on PC," and then not too long before the launch, they made this announcement that was like, "Yeah, there's no PC capability," and everyone just kind of exploded on it because it seems like a game that would be built for PC. So it's kind of, I don't know. The best way I could think of describing Destiny would be if you could think of if Halo and Call of Duty had a baby, and that baby was meant to, let's just say, save our current solar system.
What a baby.
Exactly. That would be pretty close to Destiny. I mean, it's very much a super high sci-fi game where
it's so high fantasy that it's become sci-fi.
I mean, it's evolved into being sci-fi. I mean, it's your typical. There's, plasma grenades, explosions, skill sets, aliens of all different forms, space travel. You travel to different planets.
Peter Dinklage, Once Upon a Time.
Exactly. So it had a lot of coverage when it first came out, and I actually played up to the third expansion on PS4 for Destiny, and it's a weird thing. It was one of those things where I bought the first one, I played it till about the end game, and then died. Just stopped. I waited
Literally
2 or 3 expansions. Then it's just by the third expansion, they finally gave enough extra content where I jumped back onto it, and then really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed getting up to end game, and then I actually played more into end game, and then eventually just got tired and just stopped playing. And that's kind of, unfortunately, the vicious circle of a Destiny player. For the most part, it's by the time you hit end game, this game dies because it's not an MMORPG, it's an MMOFPS. So when you hit end game, your options are either constantly grinding dungeons and raids and instances, depending on what type of MMO lingo you like, or just doing constant PvP, the kind of their little festivals that go on here and there. It's weird because the developer knows endgame's the problem, the community knows endgame's the problem, but they keep on releasing expansions that don't fix the endgame. So riddle me this.
That's interesting.
But anyway, I mean, Destiny 2.
I didn't know that was because I figured, obviously I've kept a little bit mum here because I've literally never played Destiny, for fairly obvious reasons. But I guess I thought that it was popular because, and that these types of games are popular because there's a hardcore audience for them, that likes an end game, that likes raids and dungeons and what have you. Like you said, insert lingo here. I didn't know that it was a game that didn't really have that.
The issue is Destiny. The target audience they were trying to make a continuous universe for people who liked Call of Duty, Battlefield, Halo, that type of audience. I mean, this is not your audience for WoW. It's not your audience for Star Wars: The Old Republic. Any type of standard MMO. This is purely the very first of its kind. They break in the genres where we're going to make a new genre of an everlasting single universe FPS with a storyline, side quests, and all that other fun junk. complete with collection quests, fetching quests, and all that. You get customize your character, you get different skins. I mean, it has all the flavoring of it. However, the main issue is the end game. I don't know if it's an issue with the action, the graphics, the gameplay, the handling. All these little things are extremely good. I mean, they put all their time into it. If you played this game for an hour, you would never feel displeased. Even if you played it for a few weeks, you would probably never lose the sense of like high adrenaline, like pulse pounding, hand sweating gameplay.
Sure.
So it does an amazing job with those things. However, as soon as you hit endgame, the problem is you get extremely repetitive because...
What's my motivation?
Yeah, because like once you finish all the storylines and the quests, you're left with trying to... Because playing the storyline gets you to a certain, just for lack of a better term or an easier term, gear set. Mm-hmm. Gear set skill, or gear set score. So let's just say that's 100. But in order to qualify for the raid that everyone is doing, you have to be 150. So at endgame, you're now left with, well, now I'd have to keep on grinding instances or dungeons to get my gear score up. So then you get to like 125. Then you're like, okay, now I get to go into the heroic ones, which are, they're longer, they have harder bosses, they're far more complex. And so then you're like, oh, new set, these are kind of cool. Oh, there's only 3 of them. Okay, I'm already tired of these damn things. Mm-hmm. But then your rate at which you collect loot is even slower and slower and slower. When you finally get to that raid point, then you just constantly do that one raid over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So you're just constantly grinding that raid for chance drops. So it's not like in WoW, the final raid could take a single group of people like a week or 2 weeks to do because you have like 7 or 8 different bosses that you would then have to like, one boss took you all night. Or even still, you could be like, I'm going to go do this other dungeon or this other raid because there's God knows how many instances or raids are in WoW.
I do have a really quick funny side anecdote. Mm-hmm. Basically, the only game that I've been playing this week really has been Star Wars The Old Republic. And one thing I really love about it is how single player it can feel when you're playing it. And I completely forgot that at a point that it was an MMO until I stumbled into an area. I was like, what's a heroic beast? That sounds fun. And I prepared my opening, because my guys like all burst damage and DPS. So I prepared sort of my opening attack that usually takes about a half of a health bar off of a regular enemy. And it was just like, ping! Like, uh-oh.
Run away!
Why does that say world boss under it?
Oh, yeah.
I just died right on the spot. And
the good old days of, like, Guild Wars. When you have the basically world events in your single map area.
Yeah. And so you're just kind of trucking along. You're feeling like you're on top of the world. You're doing great. You're just taking out guys left and right. Ooh, maybe this guy took 2 hits. What a challenge. You're just faced with that one thing. You're like, oh, yeah, this is an MMO. I'm supposed to be doing one of the M's here.
I'm supposed to be having a hard time killing bosses.
There's a multiplay. Oh, multiplayer. That's right.
Well, that's the thing with Destiny. I mean, by the third expansion, they at least added world events. They had basically things called Taken, which would spontaneously appear and attack like your given area if you're on a map. But even then, you would have missions or daily collections to either grind through these things or kill enough of them or kill the end boss of it. But then the problem would be you'd be sitting in this one area of the map for what you feel like would be hours and get the event like once or twice. Or you'd feel like you'd just be constantly going driving through an area of the map just to get to where you're going, and it would always spawn. So you're like, it's this weird thing. It's like every time you want it, it doesn't happen, and when you don't want it, it happens.
Yeah.
But even those, after a while, you're like, okay, I just have to grind through these guys. I got to kill enough generals. Then I kill enough generals, the main guy comes. But then once again, that M part comes back into it where you cannot get through all of it by yourself. So if you need to do one of these instances for a particular boss, which is in one particular area of a map on one particular planet, if you're the only person trying to do that collection mission, you have no backup. So it's this weird little thing, and they keep on adding little things here and there, but ultimately their expansions have yet to add on a true expansion. They add on a few more story missions. They add on a new raid. They might add on a few dungeons and a few different loot. But the problem is there's no endgame. The endgame right now is an individual raid or PvP, and that's just what people are getting tired with. And maybe in Destiny 2, maybe they can get the scope of the game larger. Maybe they could get it to the point where it has less, it's less likely to become a grind. Because even if you had, let's just say you had 3 end game raids that you could at least bounce between, that would be a start. But the other problem is, like, the end game raid for the first expansion, by the second expansion, now becomes pointless because no one wants the gear anymore. So it becomes a ghost town. So it's like, it's not even like that raid gets harder. It's not like you add on to raids.
It's rendered obsolete.
Basically, yeah, it's still always there. Like, I could probably hop on my old character right now and do the very first one ever and maybe solo it. But the only point of doing that is just for, like, yep, I checked off the box that I did it. So, and that's the fun thing is, I've played, when I got the third expansion and I played through the game, I have yet to do a raid, technically speaking. All I've ever done, I think the most I got was like some of the heroic dungeons or the heroic like rotations, and those were fun. But once again, after a while, you just get tired of grinding. But Destiny 2, they did come out and say that it will be PC and that they're looking to, I think the exact words were, to make the game feel completely new or completely different. Basically, they don't want it to feel like Destiny 1. It's like they say Destiny 2 is going to be its own game. It's going to be fresh. It's going to be different.
Does that mean I read the NeoGAF post, which was like a post of a rumor of a friend's rumor that a guy told someone kind of thing, but it is very legitimate looking, and as far as those things go. And are they basically saying they're going to drop Destiny 1 in favor of this, or that they're making 2 separate games, or that Destiny 2 is like, okay, I can't quite tell.
That's a good question. If I had to guess, I would probably go with, my vote would be, they'll probably maintain service status for Destiny 1 for a while, but I have a feeling that once Destiny 2 comes out, they're just going to switch all of their priority to that.
Yeah.
Because I think Destiny 2, I mean, like you said, PC isn't fully confirmed, but that's where all the rumor mills are going. I have a feeling that Destiny 2, if it does include PC, it could just be PC, PS4, Xbox One, and I just don't see them managing 2 different games.
Yeah.
Like, even if Destiny 2 was a completely different galaxy, I have a feeling any Destiny player is going to want to spend however many hundreds of hours, I've heard some people's stories, on one game. I don't see them wanting to go like, oh, I'll play Destiny 1 for 5 hours, and I'll play Destiny 2 for the next few hours,
right,
or I'll do it this day or this day. So I think it's going to be completely a standalone game, and I feel like maybe there'll be 3 different maybe there'll be even more classes than just the 3. I mean, they had a tank class, a caster class, and a DPS class, basically.
In the NeoGAF post, they were talking about making back end changes as well as like in-game like story and lore changes. So it's like, okay, if we are dealing with, now we're making a game in 2016 instead of whenever the first one was made.
Yeah,
we're dealing with newer technology, so we might as well make it. It's funny because I'm looking at some of these sequels recently, like Titanfall 2 and Dishonored 2. These are games that otherwise look exactly like the first game did, and I don't know how much there is as far as framework changes, but like Dishonored doesn't need to change anything because it looks a very specific way. It's a very stylish way. So Dishonored 2, they probably want to use the same engine. Otherwise, it's like, whoa, what's this? This is too shiny. This is too new. People need to be a little bit more exaggerated. But on the flip side, you got something like, or I guess in the same regard, you've got Titanfall 2 looking to me like exactly like Titanfall 1. Maybe exactly how I remember Titanfall 1, But it's...
I mean,
do they want to make a game that's like, yes, you want this one because it's an improvement in every way, or did you like the first one? Here's a sequel. Is it more a sequel or is it more standalone?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because I could almost see Destiny going either way. I mean, I'm one of the people where I want the untangibles of the first one, but updated or different deliverable, something like. I would want it to be like, I want to get the same rush of Destiny 1, but maybe I want, completely different classes, completely different universe, completely different art style, but maybe it's still, once again, just as shiny as before, and the action is just as action-packed, but maybe it's, different types of enemies. Your skills have a different color or different flash to them. It's not the same thing. It's not going to remind you the exactly same way. I almost would feel like they would almost have leeway to make completely new type of art style. It all depends on how far they want to go. If they wanted to be this,
it's almost like what was the game famous for? So you get something like BioShock, right? And BioShock 2, I think, didn't do as well as BioShock 1 because 1 just came out with this killer story that just was completely memorable. BioShock wasn't famous because of its combat. It was a little bit because of its world, definitely. So BioShock 2 had that going for it. But I think that, what was it that, Dragon Age, here's another game that I talk about forever, all the time, always, because it is the best game of all time. Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, to me, all three had great killer BioWare-isms. And what is a BioWare-ism? It's the characters, it's the world, it's the lore. But people understandably said, well, Dragon Age Origins played very much like an old school RPG, where Dragon Age 2 was too action-oriented for me, or Inquisition was too action-oriented for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. Dragon Age Origins or Dragon Age 1, depending on, I guess, when you're talking about it. Yeah. I always still refer to it as Dragon Age 1, but that game to me is just like up on a pedestal up of its own. But for reasons that are almost they're unexplainable. It's kind of like what you said. Like I feel like Destiny. Dragon Age 1 had everything. It had the story, it had the environment, it had the newness, it had the uniqueness, the individuality of it. It brought in a different type of... It had
both a newness and a retroness all at once.
But in a good way. It was the perfect combination of everything. If you were gonna, let's just say, remake Dragon Age 1 in today's... let's say in today's technology and today's resources, the only thing I'd want to really happen would be maybe you update all the graphics as well as the scenery, but I'd want all the RPG-ness of it to stay the same. I'd want the story to stay the same. Even the combat, I like the fact that the combat was very unforgiving. At times it was annoying, and some of the micromanaging, which was like one of its selling points, was hard to do to the point where I basically almost never did it. I would like that to change, but I wouldn't want it to change that Inquisition did. I enjoyed Inquisition, but to me, Inquisition was not a Dragon Age game. To me, Inquisition was just a game that had the word Dragon Age over it. Yep. So that's the thing. Is like, I think like updating a game to current trends or current genres or current technology, it could actually be very detrimental. It could be like if you would have given me Inquisition first and then said, oh, well, we're making this other game called Origins, I would be like, I don't even want to touch this. This game is kind of meh. So, you know what I mean? It's like,
what is this?
It's a weird downgrade. It's like, I don't want that. I don't want, we keep on coming back to it, but Dragon Age Inquisition was like, it was the flavor of the month. It was what's the big thing right now? Open world games. Well, let's make an open world game. Okay.
Technically, it's literally Kingdoms of Amalur. Like, in a lot of regards in its gameplay.
In a sense.
But my point being that Kingdoms of Amalur did Kingdoms of Amalur better?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously. But you know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, I could see it because Kingdoms of Amalur where, you're an individual person in a world kind of going through.
Right.
Where this one, you do have a squad, but even still, it just boiled down into what am I going to go... Combat. Yeah, it was a hack and slash combat that was just basically collection missions. I never once really felt drawn into Inquisition, minus the fact that I know every single map I'm going to be doing roughly the same things over and over again.
Right.
But you could put that in the basket of, Dragon Age Inquisition, The Witcher 3, any one of the Far Cries, let's just see, Mad Max.
You're exactly right. Flavor of the month, flavor of the year.
Metal Gear Solid. All these games went... massive open world because I forget which was the original one, maybe one of the Far Cries, that, not even Skyrim probably. Skyrim was like the original, people really like open world stuff. Let's just do everything in open world.
I remember when they were talking about the early development for Dragon Age Inquisition, they said, we're going to take like a Skyrim approach. I just thought, the first thought in my head was, oh no.
Yeah, because and realistically, if you think about it, I don't know if I have any evidence to support this, but if Skyrim was the original one for good reason, because it was just great, but even still, in the definition of an open world game, Skyrim was good, but I wouldn't say that it would be like what I would want to measure everything up to. I think it ended up being enjoyable, but I don't think in its initial, the initial idea, Skyrim really wasn't all. I mean, the initial storyline was only there to get you through like a town where you could then branch off, make your own, then basically like did the whole make your own adventure quest, which worked out. But if you looked at even something like Kingdoms of Amalur, that type of gameplay fizzles out in a lot of ways. I mean,
here's what frustrates me is when people throw a name around that we want to make a game like Skyrim. How like Skyrim? Do you want to make a game that's an open world fantasy RPG? That's not a game. Skyrim shouldn't be your reference point if it's just like, I want to make a game like Skyrim. What? It has horses in it. Okay. Yeah, I guess
has
Skyrim
a dragon
has horses
in it.
too.
People scream if you touch a chicken, you die, like that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. Legend of Zelda also had that, but yeah, if Skyrim's the one you want to use,
But it's like, and I've just been waiting for this open world thing to break because I'm really sick of it, and the fact that the problem is the concept of open world to a certain level interests me, but no one does it right, and I will put my neck on the line for that one. Any one of those major games I've played or I've mentioned, Far Cry, Witcher 3, Dragon Age Inquisition, basically any Bethesda game put in the Elder Scrolls universe.
Yep.
To a certain
Fallout.
extent. Fallout, good, yeah, another good one. Fallout's been another huge one. And I've known people that are, bleeding heart activists for any single one of these games. But for me personally, I play maybe an hour or two of them, maybe minus Skyrim. Skyrim is about the only one that I've poured, I couldn't tell you how many hours into.
I could, but I'd be embarrassed.
Exactly. I mean, but all of those, I get really tired of them really quick because the game doesn't marry correctly. It's either you get a world that's so vast that it's like thin, spread thin and hollow, or you get a game that's so condensed that it's really not an open world game. And it's weird because at the same time you want a story, or you want a game to tell you a story, but in other ways sometimes an individual story is not enough. Like,
I think that the open world thing was initially a backlash to games of like the PS2 era and original Xbox era, where they were just linear campaigns. Mission 1, Mission 2, Mission 3, all the way to the end. And it was like, what if, remember when Tony Hawk's American Wasteland was being promoted? The whole advertising and promotional material for that game was, I remember there was a video, I think it was Tony Hawk skateboarding around like LA, and then all of a sudden he runs into an invisible wall and it says loading, and they were like, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, no loading screens.
Yeah,
and of course,
no, you're right.
At the time that blew our minds. We were like, holy crap. But what was it? It was about 6 hub worlds just connected by a little tunnel. So sure, there wasn't a loading screen, but there was a loading tunnel that you skateboarded through. And that was the beginning of like, wow, it's open world. No. It's like 6 individually rendered worlds, just loosely connected. You might as well be separate levels. But it was exciting.
I mean, but it goes back to like whenever we talk about the old craze of the World War II game, where it used to be, Call of Duty did it well, and then you have like one of the Battlefields that did it really well. But then you'd have everyone and their grandmother made a World War II game, and at the end of the day, you're just like, I hate World War II games now because everyone is trying to do one just because, but no one does it well. And I feel like any game that has, you take genre or established game X and just marry it with open world as a genre, it just instantly tears down the game. I mean, it's just, and I would much prefer, I know this sounds weird, I really enjoy games that are set out, this is your character, this is your linear story, and we're going to give you the story we want to give you. In a lot of ways, games have been very successful with that. Even like current games, I see there's a lot of, I can see a game like that being, having a lot of success. And it's just like when people have an open world just to say they have an open world is where it starts to like hinder it.
Yeah.
I would at some point it's like you have a main story quest here that I don't even want to follow because it just seems like an afterthought. That's really not what a game should be. I mean, a game should have a driving force with it in some way. If you advertise a game that said, hey, guess what? There is no story to this, not even one to get you between towns, literally is, we'll plop you down into a forest and everything from there on out's on you. I would say, like, okay, I'm probably not going to play that game. But at least you know up front.
All those survival games. I mean, survival games are the flavor of the week right now. And
yeah,
they're saying, okay, we've made this, large map, and here you go. Go to town.
Yeah, but at the same time, survival games, it kind of makes sense. I mean,
I wonder if it's the expectation of what the game is. If you're making an RPG, on the flip side, it's like, no. Who am I? What am I doing? Am I supposed to just be me carving my own identity, or what?
I mean, I guess it's like the argument. I guess like an example would be like, are you Pillars of Eternity? I think that's what it was called. Or are you going to be Baldur's Gate? I mean, Baldur's Gate was, very much a old school top down, Diablo-esque dungeon crawler that had the occasional side quests, but ultimately, or any one dungeon you went into, you have the main reason why you're in the dungeon, and you have the secondary reason why you're in the dungeon. But ultimately, you're driving towards something. Like Pillars of Eternity, very much, or even like Original Sin.
I think more Divinity than Pillars.
Yeah,
definitely.
Divinity. Yeah, but even then you go into Divinity, where it literally there's kind of a driving force. But the main point of the game is that you plop down and you just do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, definitely Divinity. Yeah.
So, I think like that's like the two ends of the spectrum. It's like they're both very similar games in what they're trying to give you, but in very different ways. I mean, I don't know if you can say which one is better because it's weird. Like, Divinity, it has all this, every reward under the sun, and it's just like everyone says like how great this game is, but it's like. And maybe this could all just be personal opinion, but it's weird to think because it's at the end of the day, I'm like, are they really successful in giving us a game, or are they successful at giving us a world? It's, you know what I mean? It's whenever I think of a game,
I suppose it's your definition of a game.
Yeah,
but I'm inclined to agree with you. Yeah,
it's just I don't play a game just to. I'm going to contradict myself here. I play RPGs to make my own character and my own story, but at the same time, I just don't want an open world to do whatever the hell I want in, because after a while, doing whatever the hell you want gets old to me, because it's like, I want to be able to know what I'm working towards, versus I could just walk by the one guy who has the quest chains that I'm going to find the most appealing, and never know he's there. Like, that to me is just like, I don't know. It just seems weird to me.
I'm curious, where does GTA, Grand Theft Auto, where does that fall on this spectrum for you?
I don't know. GTA, no matter what, you always have that main story mission waiting for you. And you can choose to go down. I don't know. GTA and like Skyrim, it's weird. They're very similar in the sense of
I want Skyrim, but in California.
Exactly. It's just like you have that main story quest that's you can always do to advance to the quote unquote beat the game moment, but there's no reason for you to push it. I mean, and I feel like sometimes
it's not like you're gonna unlock a better suit of plate mail for Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. Maybe you can just go and like buy a nicer house or get more income, or help one of your side quest pals, and then once you finish out all the side quests, you have to do the main story so you can get to the next set of side quests. I think there's some merit into that, but once again, it's all in the delivery. It's just I hate all these games that are just getting an open world painted onto them and then not giving me what I want from that game. Like Inquisition.
I think GTA works because the premise is here is a parody, like GTA 5 obviously is the one we're talking about here. Here is a parody of LA and the surrounding countryside, and every little inch of that world, yeah, sure, it's sophomoric and juvenile, but it's painted with parody. Every sign that you see, if you zoom in on the newspapers floating along, it's just every inch of that is, look at this parody of American culture. Ha ha ha. And then the story is like, has become increasingly cinematic. I think GTA 5 did a good job by going back to being super duper lighthearted and ridiculous. Sure, it had its moments, but for the most part, it was kind of ridiculous. I think everyone still agrees that Vice City was the best GTA ever.
I loved Vice City.
Just for all sorts of reasons. But it's not, here is this open world necessarily because here it is, go do what you want. Yes, you can go ride a jet ski. Yes, you can go fly a plane. But the selling point, the premise is, look at this open world. Skyrim, on the flip side, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but is like, here is a canvas for this fantasy RPG, where GTA is, here is the actual artwork, rather than the canvas. This is the centerpiece. This is, the city. Los Santos is the focal point of this game.
Yeah, probably. And maybe, I don't know, it could just be all personal, but like, even if you look at like San Andreas, I barely even got a quarter of the way through San Andreas before I wanted to chuck it out my window.
San Andreas was pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, where's the line? I think they got too GTA for a GTA game, which is weird to say. But
I know exactly what you mean, though.
Yeah, I loved Vice City now that you brought it up, because it just seemed, the world grew as your character grew. It made sense. San Andreas, it seemed like the growth rate to your character was just astronomical. And then even if you look at GTA 5, the fact that you instantly start out with the world being available to you, in a weird way, it's almost kind of, I don't know, it's almost like overwhelming to a point where it's like...
Well, I think that them having the three characters was a good way to combat that, which is like, okay, the upper area, that's Trevor's area right here. Southeast is basically Franklin's, southwest is basically Michael's. But they cross,
Yeah, I think they break it out, but it's still, I almost feel like it's getting to the point of you have to make your own fun versus the game giving you fun. And does a game that lets you make your own fun really a good game, or is it just the fact that you as a player know what you like, so you can figure out that, maybe jumping off this taller skyscraper is fun for me, but is that really the game delivering it, or is it just a happenstance? Is it like the only reason why GTA 5 is so good because people can find all these really wacky like stunt tricks that they can do, or is it actually a good game? Like that's...
Well, it's so funny because I remember when GTA 5 came out, the original release of it, before it was out on PC, so I had no impression of it. But the other people who were... I was on another podcast at the time, and boy, talk about a mixed reaction, because Alec, a friend of ours who was on an earlier episode of Addicted to Loot, go back and listen to that. That's the No Man's Sky Extravaganza episode of Addicted to Loot, available at addictedtoloot.weebly.com. He loved GTA 5, and he just came out right out of the gate saying, this is a perfect game. This is an incredible game. I love this game. And the other, 4 people on the podcast were like, I kind of hate this. And it was so fascinating to hear. They were like, it's so overstuffed. Like, why the hell is there a tennis mini game? Why the hell is there this? Why is there that? I don't like Trevor. I don't like Franklin. I don't like Michael. And it just was like, what an annoying game. What a letdown. It was like No Man's Sky all over again, Wow, all the hype, and this is just, I mean, I guess it's a big game, but so what? And so it's really funny to hear you saying this, because I think that I fall on the favorable side of GTA 5, definitely. I really liked it. I'm also very big on making my own fun, and that's a game that lends really well to that. I am the person that's like, all right, I'm going to go to the top of Mount Chiliad, give me a dirt bike, here we go, and just, go crazy.
Yeah, and I'm good with that only when I'm, let's say, playing with you or somebody else. When it's just me, myself, I want to, I guess, have a very different experience, but at the same time, I can almost understand what your other old podcaster brethren were talking about where it's like, where's the line between enough and too much, where it's like, maybe I don't care that I have to play a mini game to give myself a soda out of the machine versus, like maybe I only need 1 or 2 mini games. Maybe I only should have a shooting range that's really well bedded versus shooting range, golf course, tennis court.
This kind of goes back to what I was saying about it being the canvas versus the artwork, where it's like the part where you have Michael doing the yoga, that was hilarious because as a part of the story, here's this old out of shape guy, well not old, older, out of shape guy awkwardly trying to do yoga. And so in the flow of the story, it made sense as this, all of a sudden you have this yoga mini game where he's tripping over himself, and it's a laugh, it's a little scripted giggle. But I never went back and did yoga independently in the game. It wasn't something that like, well, why would I do that, And, like, there's a little bit of tennis. I don't think it was in the story itself, but,
It was. I think you had to do something with your wife at the time.
Right. Yes.
You fired the instructor.
That was it. Because when you're playing it and Michael and his wife are fighting, I think that's cool. It's like when we were talking about Mass Effect 3 last week, and there's that sequence where you're boxing with Vega, and you're having this dramatic conversation while you guys, like, the fight's kind of table turns as the conversation table turns. That's good writing. That's cool. But as far as, like, now I want to go back and play tennis just for the giggle of it, it wasn't that good of a tennis game.
That's the thing. It's like, what really is... if I'm going to have that level of detail, I would want that level of detail to like the scale of like Star Citizen, where it's every little thing is amazing versus we just gave you a big world with a lot of stuff to do, but maybe you like it, maybe you don't. You just have to find the stuff you like.
Right.
That to me isn't what I guess what I would be looking for.
And that's why I'm really hyped for Destiny 2 on PC.
Coming back to that, I actually was doing kind of research while we were doing this, which I found a little bit better of a snapshot from the developer, which is, well, one thing is that they're planning on bringing in a lot of other little studios to help them do this, so the scale is already there. But they said, let's just say, feels like an entirely new game, and to accomplish that, it may ditch the setting of the first game in favor of new planets, characters, and activities, which in of itself is huge. But then another way of saying it, or another source they said, was one of the expansions in Destiny 1 is to fix small things. Destiny 2 is to overhaul all the big things.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling it's going to be, what's everything wrong with the first one? What's everything right with the first one? Okay, let's keep all the things that are right and just completely have a new canvas to change up all the things that are wrong. So,
well, in a perfect world, because how often have sequels said, okay, we're gonna upgrade it, and it's like people are like, no, you upgraded the wrong things for me.
I mean, there's always going to be that risk, but at the same time, I feel like in a game like Destiny, it's a safe thing to do because the problems with the original one are so glaring. I feel like they know exactly where to counter.
Yeah, okay. I can understand that.
And like I said, this is something that we talked about before on when we were talking about like stuff like Battlefield 1, Titanfall 2, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. The thing that was missing to me from all the little games, even like The Division, which is the only other game in the genre, basically.
Yeah.
At least at this point. The thing that's missing from all of them that Destiny has and Destiny delivers is that sense of, oh shit, I'm over my head. How are we going to do this? And then you come out the other end just like, oh my god, I can't believe.
See me, but I'm nodding vigorously right
now.
Yeah,
I mean, like those are the things. Like that's the thing that always brought me to come back to Destiny, and that's why everyone goes back to Destiny. Is that when they get a new expansion, you're like, I've been missing that thrill. I've been missing that rush, and that's what is amazing about Destiny, but the problem is they just can't deliver on it well enough to keep someone constantly playing it. And I think maybe if they went to this scale of trying to do it like a WoW, where it's just far larger, it could have that, WoW following of a game that's just constantly, people are just constantly playing it nonstop. But it's going to take a lot of work. But I really hope it comes to PC because I miss playing Destiny to the fact of getting those sensations. It's a big throwback to the original Halos, where lots of times you felt like a badass, not because you're this overpowered superhero, but because you as a player were able to come out the other side, like, and survived, versus, something like Deus Ex, where it's just like, I'm a superhuman, I'm going to grind through everybody because I'm a superhuman. No, this was, I'm a superhuman in a universe that doesn't really give a crap.
It's funny because I used to love, back when I was about 7 or 8, and the games I would play at the time, I would instantly go to Cheat Code Central and look up the God Mode cheat, because it was just like, oh, I don't want to die. I want to be awesome. I want to, punch 200% of my normal punching power. I want to, be invulnerable, stuff like that. And I guess, I don't know if this is something that happens with age or if it was something to do with the games at the time, but then once I started playing games and, getting off of easy difficulty, moving towards normal difficulty or harder difficulties, I was like, oh, now this is fun because I feel like I earned this victory.
Yep.
I certain times you're just like, oh my God, this is so annoyingly hard. Like, I will always have, this is such a bummer, but I will always have a sour taste in my mouth with the Banner Saga. The Banner Saga was amazing. It was so good. This was like Game of the Year easily for me while I was playing it until the very last fight. And, of course, they ended up patching it like 2 days after. And, I had bought it just on release, so I and the first heap of people playing it were like, this endgame boss on normal difficulty is impossible. Just so you know, it was the final boss of the game, and he just was unbeatable. It's by par of the rest of the difficulty of the game. And I was just like, well, now I feel bummed because now I'm going to have to lower the difficulty to easy just for this one boss. And that was after giving him like a day of attempting to beat him, getting pissed off at it, and getting subsequently pissed off at the game. And it's since then left, like I said, a bitter taste.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like, it's kind of going to the Dark Souls crowd, where you kind of get the game knowing the fact that it's going to annoy the hell out of you because it's just that difficult. And I think some people, that's what they want. I mean, if you go back to, I even think the prequel to Dark Souls, which was like the Ninja Gaidens of our time.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I loved Ninja Gaiden. I played that game a whole hell of a lot. To the point where it felt like Dark Souls. Like, you needed to be good at it to get through an individual creep. Like, I remember getting to a certain point where guaranteed if a certain enemy appeared, and they always appeared in threes, and there's like these super ninjas, I guarantee that if I did not come out of there with a certain percentage of my health, that I'm just screwed, like, from that point on. Mm-hmm. And I would have to play constantly to the point where I felt like a freaking pro because I could fight off 3 people simultaneously, ducking, parrying, dodging, hitting, and timing all these things so perfectly that I can only get out with a few hits, which is insane.
And that's actual player skill.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, you just develop it, and you're like, now I feel like the ninja of Ninja Gaiden, where I'm just being an uber fighter, like I'm fighting the way that this is supposed to happen. But then, same thing, I got to a point where I had to fight a helicopter, literally as a boss, and I could not, for the life of me, figure out what the hell I had to do to beat this damn guy, or even to get a hit off, because if he'd just be flying around shooting missiles, I'm like, well, do I have to jump up here? No. Do I have to do this other thing? No. Do I have to shoot it with an arrow? No. And someone eventually figured out what the hell you're supposed to do, or maybe I was just an idiot. But after trying for that one boss for a while, I just said, screw this, and just really stopped playing a game that I really ultimately really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's such a bummer, because it's like, what do you attribute it to? Is it the game's fault? Is it my fault? Is it the fault of the time? Whatever it is, I don't want to go back to it.
But anyway, that was Destiny 2. So let us hear. I know, we have actually, surprisingly, we're a PC gaming podcast. We have a few console listeners. I'd be interested to hear what people feel like, or what people's thoughts are on Destiny, or even some PC gamers' thoughts on, would you do Destiny 2 on PC, or are you just feel like, they shunned me once, I shall not do it again because screw those guys?
I will say, I have greatly enjoyed our time playing The Division. I would like to go back to it. We're going to talk about
we need to do that, yeah.
In a future episode. They've been basically going through a overhaul of The Division, but what's interesting in this regard is that they're doing it within the game that currently exists. It's not like, okay, we're going to just scrap it and do the Division 2. They're like, let's fix what we have here, and just keep it going.
Yeah, by the time we actually play it again, it'll almost feel like a completely different game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, one of the reasons why the Division, like, we liked playing it, but the reason why it never really, like, got us hyped was it was weird because you're a guy shooting another guy with a gun. He's wearing a sweatshirt, but yet he's taking 5 hours to kill. But yet a gunshot to the head doesn't take off any health. Why is this a thing? But in a game
this fell very much more on the MMO grind side of MMO FPS.
Yeah, but at the same time, it didn't make sense. And
Destiny,
it just
doesn't work. Yeah.
In Destiny, when I'm fighting an alien with a plasma shield, with a plasma rifle and all his goons,
chitinous armor.
Yeah, like it takes me a long time to wear through his armor, but it makes sense because it's sci-fi. There's a reason why he's hard to kill.
Yeah.
If a guy's just running around in a sweatshirt going, "Yo, man," and shooting a pistol at me,
and you're unloading an AK-47 into him, and he's like taking.
He's basically like the Luke
damage.
Cage of Division, but it's every person. Like it doesn't make sense. Like either, give him a ton of armor or make my weapon do no damage. It's like, oh, I just got a 15,000 crit. Oh, it did nothing to him. Like, it's weird. The scaling, it made sense. The scaling went up correctly as any type of MMO should. It just didn't make sense from a logical standpoint.
With human beings.
Yeah, I mean, like, it made no sense. Like, just because a guy's a higher level doesn't mean, like, his skin has now a better resistance to standard bullets. It's like,
I am advanced human.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, because I'm older and more advanced than you, haha, I now know how to take a bullet better. It's like,
I've developed turtle shell skin.
Basically, so, I don't know. That was really our only news piece for this week, which is very strange for us, considering almost all of our podcasts have been dominated by news. Even last week...
I'll take it. I'll take the little break.
Yeah, even last week when we said, guess what, this is our non-news episode, we still spent an hour and a half to 2 hours talking about news. So... I made a new little section just for this week, which I call it Old News ? Just because
Old News ? That's now the official section. Old News?
Basically is what, it's just games we kind of covered, but we didn't really, new information has now come about these games. And one of these games, I only said, we talked about Everspace very briefly, I think, during one episode, just because it was exploding on Steam one day. And we talked about it as it's kind of like a roguelike combat sim, basically. And I was actually watching a Let's Play of it, and I finally figured out what the heck it's like. I actually saw what it is, and it's very different than what I thought it would be. It's, if you think of, oh my god, Faster Than Light, but in a single fighter, and you're piloting the fighter.
Rather than the top-down.
That's really what the game is. You have to warp your way through a system without dying, basically. And along the way, you have to get resources. You have to kill other things. But
rather than without dying, maybe putting off death as long as possible.
Yeah, it's very much
because that's basically a roguelike. Is you're putting off death as long as possible. You gain something so that the next time around you have that advantage.
Yeah, and it seems like that's very much what it is. It looked far more intense and enjoyable than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It actually was. I thought it was just going to be. It looked like when I first read it, it sounded like it was a procedurally generated galaxy. So I thought it was just someone.
Oh no.
Yeah, I just thought it was someone constantly flying around shooting new enemies or just kind of flying around other planets. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's really much. You do whatever you want in the one little system you're in, and then you warp out to the next one, and you keep on working your way through it. Once trying to survive, trying to take on other people, upgrading your ship. But it was kind of interesting because the ship battling was pretty cool, but you definitely felt the fact that you were at this tiny little ship, because even like the very first people you start to see can just almost destroy you if you piss them off the right way.
It looks like, I'm looking at screenshots now, it looks like everything you fight is like Dreadnought class or bigger.
Yeah, you definitely feel like a tiny little ship. And I think at a certain point you do get to the level of you can take these things on. But I do think the enjoyability of the game is the fact that, you die and then you replay, you die and you replay, and you just keep on trying to advance further and further. but I don't know how much longevity it has to it. I would say if people are a fan of Faster Than Light or other roguelikes, or even just want a dogfighting sim in a certain manner, it probably would satisfy the itch. I mean, it definitely looks the part, and it handles the part well. It's not like realistic physics. It's not like you have to worry about drag or drift. It's very much, I would say, like an arcade fighter. But
I will say I am completely interested in this, and the only reason I haven't bought it immediately is that it's in early access, and a couple of the comments I saw and even in some of the reviews were like, look, this is definitely an early access game, but it's really good now, and that usually bodes well for like, okay, buy it when it comes out, it's gonna be great.
Yeah,
so I'm willing to wait. I've got enough to play that I'm willing to wait until the next, maybe big update for it or something.
Yeah, and that's always a subject I've always kind of had mixed feelings on, the debate of early access versus waiting to release. It's almost like, do you pay to be a beta tester, and with the hope of the fact that your money is going to then, get return on investment?
Yeah, it's like Kickstarter or something.
But at the same time, sometimes the price for early access is the same price as post-release. So it's like, do I just wait to get the full game, or do I pay to get an unfinished game early and then maybe it becomes a good game, versus, the patient people going, you know what, I'll just wait on this. And then people are like, oh, early access is pretty good. And then the game comes out and they're like, yeah, the actual game sucks. So, you know what I mean?
For me, it has always come down to basically a complete 50-50 combination of how desperately do I want to play this, and how is it being reviewed by the people who are playing it right now. Like, I remember when Starbound first was I think first released in early access like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, this looks really cool, I'm really interested in playing this, and people were saying, yeah, there's a playable game here, this, you can have an enjoyable experience with it. It was like $15, and I went, okay, cool, downloaded it, great. And then finally, when the quote unquote final version came out, it was like, well, let's see what they've done since then. It's a game that lends well to, there have been updates, I'd like to go in and see the updates, and you can hear about those updates on a previous Addicted to Loot podcast at addictedtoloot.weebly.com. But that was, again, that's a game that lent well to, they've updated things, let me see. If it was like, if you told me there was a Mass Effect game in early access, I'd be like, no, I'm going to wait till that's done. I'm not going to, maybe I will play a 1-level demo, but I don't want to play a game where it's like, all of a sudden you go over to talk to Garrus, and there's like a placeholder cardboard cutout of Garrus standing there, and like some intern's voice saying like, Shepard, hi, this is me, Garrus, your friend Garrus, who's always been here. And it's just like, oh boy, no. I have to have the complete polished experience for something like Mass Effect.
Yeah, and it's just, I think I've only ever done one game early access, and and unbeknownst to me, when I got it early access, like I got it super early access, where it's just like, it was like a single guy developer who finally got to the game to a certain point, but he's just like, I'm putting this up now, and it's constantly, it's nowhere near finished. And it's done huge changes, but even now it's still kind of a mixed game. It's a game called Lynchdom Battle Mage, and
I remember that. Yeah,
the concept was really appealing to me, and it was kind of cool, but it never once felt like a really good game. Even now, where it's like kind of a full release, the concept still really intrigues me, and I wish someone could do the concept to a full-scale development. It's basically,
that was the one that was like, it was really like, I was just about to say it, Skyrim, the magic casting side of it,
not
right?
Not really. It was a game where its goal was for you to play a mage and then really feel like a mage. The fact that, if you're a mage, magic is just powerful. It's this, you felt like a badass. Like, that's the whole point of what this game was. It's like, I wanted to do a mage caster better than anyone ever could. And like, your whole thing is that you're just a mage, and you have bolts, you have AoEs, you have warps and teleports, but like, you do not fight hand to hand whatsoever. It literally is, you have different types of spell combinations, and the whole point, and it does it really well. It actually makes you feel like a badass mage. So I'll definitely give it that. I just wish someone would take that concept to the 10th degree and just make a full-scale game out of it. Because it's a cool thing. No one else really does it. No one else makes you want to be like, oh, I'm a mage and I feel like a mage. But I guess going back to my point is just early access. It's weird. Like, as a consumer, it kind of scares me. But in the same way, I almost want to get early access in some games just so that I could either A, see it develop, or B, help it develop. But it's at the same time of going, is it really going to be worth it? Is it really going to be, am I ever really going to get the game I'm looking for in this? I mean,
yeah, I've bought a good share of early access games, but it tends to always be really safe bets. Games that are just like, oh, this is like 90% done. They're just either maybe not, they're bug testing a server or something like that. It tends to be games that are done. I don't think I've ever bought a game that's like super early development and here have some money to help support the development of it. Like I've never funded a Kickstarter or anything like that. I'm very cagey with my money, when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like the Linstone Battle Mage, like I remember like the very first time I popped into it, I felt like, oh, this is kind of a cool game. I like this concept. And the next time I popped into it, it was after an update. I'm just like, holy crap, this is a different game. Because it was like, that's really what the guy was doing. He's like, I'm just constantly updating this game as best I can. So it's just almost like you got an extra part of the game every single time, but you never know if that game's going to be completely different than the first part. Like the first part might have just been like a tech demo, which made you feel like a certain way, just so you could see kind of like what the game's going to handle. But then it just kept on growing onto it to the point where it's just like, man, I'm just like sitting here watching this game basically become unfinished.
Well, and I do think that in almost a good way, early access kind of gives lesser games a free pass. And I say, again, in a good way, I've said previously, I think No Man's Sky should have released as an early access game. And people would have gone bananas over it. People would have been like, this is fucking great. Holy crap. And they probably would have made as much money as they did with their regular release, or close to, and a much better reception, and could have been like, hey, what would you guys say if we added more variety in the game? Added more things to do, and people would say, cool, yeah, keep developing it. I'm interested in seeing how this goes, instead of them basically, let's face it, releasing an early access, early level game as a commercial one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think it's a pros and cons kind of scale. It's I can see pros and cons on either side. I mean, weighing out your odds, but I mean, think about it's not.
Again, my suggestion is, if you are thinking early access, how far along is this game? Gambles, it's how much a person wants to take a gamble. Yeah. If you really support the hell out of that Unity tech demo that guy put up, go for it.
Or even if it's a game you're going to get one way or the other, maybe there's a reason to get it early access at that point, as opposed to just...
Well, look at us with Star Citizen. When we finally played it and we were like, this is cool. This is really good. This is looking good. And then they released that, version 3.0 video. It was like, yep, I see where this is going. Okay, happy to give them my purchase.
No, definitely. And I'm still waiting on doing my purchase. But...
Well,
I definitely still want to do that. But no, I completely agree. I feel like... I guess it is a mixed bag. It's up to the consumer, I guess, at that point. Because I know some people that just almost consistently just do small-scale early access stuff. And it's both, you get lucky and you get unlucky. It's just... And maybe you're that one person who finds the early access game of, man, this game's a hidden gem. But...
Right. And what is the developer trying to do as well? Are they on early access because they're looking for funding, or are they looking for feedback? Or both, or neither,
Yeah. And surprisingly enough, we're actually going to get into our playlist now. Out of
mind-blowing.
This is probably the earliest since like episode 2 that we've gotten into our playlists. And it's even different still. We're actually going to... It's a mixed bag. The playlist on the games I'm going to be doing are all games I have played, just haven't talked about, considering I'm still just putting all my life into Mass Effect 3, and we've probably covered that. We could cover it a lot more, but we've probably covered it enough in back-to-back episodes where I'm just going to...
That's how I feel about Star Wars: The Old Republic. Like, I could bang on about that for hours, probably.
Until we make a Star Wars: The Old Republic podcast, we're going to try to keep it a little bit more diverse.
Honestly, we should probably be thankful for this little lull in game time, because we still have, just a little heads up to everyone, Mafia 3, Shadow Warrior 2, Titanfall 2, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Dishonored 2, Watch Dogs 2, South Park: The Fractured Butthole, all coming out in the next 3 months.
Oh my god, I can't wait for it. I've still been sitting here trying to figure out which one I want to get, let alone anything else.
Safe bet, probably more than half of those we will be buying.
Probably. I know at least 2 of them almost likely be buying. Like, I'm almost guaranteed buying, and then the other ones I'm still sitting here going, I don't know. But with that, we'll go into our playlist, and I wanted to start out with a game that's, I don't know, it's kind of I don't know if it's under the radar or not. It's a weird little game. It's called Mordheim: City of the Damned. It's one of those games where if you're a fan of Warhammer, and I feel like this game got a lot of help when Total War Warhammer came out, because it's very much the same universe. It's just a completely different style of game. Mordheim is actually a squad, team building, turn-based strategy game. It's one of those games where you have a board, you have characters, you move a character. I move this character over here that costs this many action points, and I attack, or then I shoot, or then I collect, or who knows what. But it's the backstory of it is Mordheim in and of itself is a city in the Warhammer universe that basically was at one point in time a very happy little city. The sun was out and birds were chirping and everyone was like, woo, this is great. And they were bustling, and just overall everyone was super happy. There's a dog playing
Mordheim, City of the Delightful.
Exactly. A dog playing with a little boy on the side, and he's running around with a balloon. And then one day this massive meteorite of warpstone just crashes into the center of it and just decimates the entire city. I mean, literally
typical.
No one lives. And it's just like everything is like Warpstone is a type of, let's just say, essence in the Warhammer universe, which kind of filters into chaos. I mean, there's kind of 2 different realms. I mean, there's the standard realm where, magic and everything else happens, and there's chaos. Chaos is just kind of like this power in the universe. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. It's just kind of it's there. And it's there because people believe it's there. If every single person in the Warhammer universe has stopped believing in it, it would just fade away. It's kind of like a weird little mechanic, but that's kind of how
like
it works.
Nothing in Never-Ending Story.
Exactly. So this warpstone that crashes into it, in of itself, just warps this entire city. I mean, it makes it. Whenever you look at the environment, it is just this mixture of collapsing buildings, damaged buildings, weird mutilated statues, or like weird growths coming out of the ground, and it's just the entire atmosphere of the game is so spot on, where that alone is almost enough to play this game, especially for people that know a little bit of the backstory. But
I always hear about these Games Workshop games as the term grimdark.
Oh,
that's what I hear to describe it.
It is so grim and dark. It's like one of those games where when I did a Let's Play on one of the factions for a little while, one of the Chaos faction, the Chaos Warband, of this. And it is one of those games where you have to crank up the brightness as a recorder because it's just dark. And
permanently Halloween.
Yeah, but it does it in it's such a great light where if you're playing it yourself, it's just perfect. And the reason why this game is a little bit more known, or it's almost like infamous really, because it's so unforgiving in its dice rolls, which is still like random number generators, to the point where everyone just is like, yep, that's Mordheim, because it's just like, yep, oh, I have a 99% chance of hitting. Oh, I missed 3 hits in a row. That's Mordheim.
Classic.
It's like, and it's a game that's like,
funny.
You almost love to hate it because it's just that annoying. But it's unbalanced. It's not a correct way because statistically speaking, the stuff that happens shouldn't happen. But it almost makes
so it's not.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
It's not like XCOM where it's like just bad luck.
No,
it just literally is badly designed in that regard.
Oh, it's almost just like. Well, Maybe somewhere in the code, it's a fair result, but they don't give you enough information to let you see that. So all you see is, I have a 99% chance to hit. Why did I miss him 4 times in a row?
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so you're sitting there going, oh, this guy has 2 HP left. I have 4 chances to hit. Like, I have 3 attacks. Each one is a 99% chance to hit. Swing once. Oh, he dodged it. Okay, I guess that's weird. Next attack, I just completely miss. Okay. Third attack, you just miss again. And then he lives somehow. And you're like, how in the world? And you'll sit there and you look at the numbers, because it tells you this little ticker box, basically what just happened. Like, target number required, like 01, like basically like 2, you rolled a 1 each time or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, so you're just sitting there getting annoyed at the random number generator built into this game, because it's just like, this shouldn't be happening. And it's almost like, it's what makes Mordheim. It's this game that's hard because you just cannot predict it. And it's in a weird way, it's almost kind of fitting, because you have just no idea what's going to happen. And I don't know, it's kind of like, it's one of its charms in a weird way, but it's a fun game. It's really just
a little idiosyncrasy.
It's just a hard strategy game. No matter what you do, you can do your best to put yourself in a good situation, but there's no guarantee you're going to come out on top, which is, it's just so great for strategy. Like, I've had very few, I guess let's just call them matches, that I actually thought, like, I played that probably as well as I could have, and everything went according to plan. Most of the time it's like, okay, I'm going to move these few people over here, and oh crap, that's their entire team. Everyone run the other way! And you're just like, you have just no idea what's going to happen, and it's just a fun little game. If you like Warhammer, I say it's a great game. If you just want a good turn-based strategy game, after all the updates and everything else, at this point, it's a good game now. I mean, it's just fun. If you just want a really frustrating adventure through a strategy game with team building, like, you can pick your own warband, you can pick your own guys, you can level them up, you can fit them out with different types of equipment, you can make them look different. It's just fun. It's just, I don't know, it's just a good game. It really,
I feel like I would probably like it.
Probably. I mean, I'd be interested to hear what you think, just because of how, like, I remember in my very first experience with this game ever, I had to do a type of mission where the optional objective is called, like, crush their will. So you have to kill off 2 people and take a trinket off their body. The very first guy, or one of the guys I had to kill, was the enemy leader, who was a spellcaster. The guy walks into my field of view the very first time I see him with one of my guys. He doesn't get into combat or anything. He just walks up into my field of view, so I'm watching him. He goes to cast a buff to himself. He fails, and then he causes himself 9999 damage and instantly just explodes on the ground.
What?
Very first thing I've ever experienced with this game was, doo-doo-doo. Oh, there he is. What am I going to do next? Oh, that was easy. And it's just like, what? This, huh? And it's like weird,
I guess that's how this is going.
Weird little things like that is what makes this game, like, uniquely special. It's just a fun little strategy game. It's if you want just a game that's going to make you sit there and make you think about one turn for 5-10 minutes, this is probably the game. I think it's fun. I think it's good, and it's uniquely Mordheim, which is probably what's best about it.
Is it something you would recommend to fans of Warhammer?
Definitely. I mean, it's even more so than Total Warhammer. I feel like it's a game that you truly feel like this is probably what this world would look like, especially this city. I mean, you don't see anything else about it besides the city. I still think it's fitting. I think it's very much Warhammer. I mean, I think
that side of Warhammer, not to be confused with Warhammer 40K.
Correct. This is Warhammer. I think it's called Fantasy Universe or Fantasy Worlds or Fantasy something.
Sure.
It's basically, it's 40K is 40,000 years after this one. So definitely not 40K, which is still in itself a great little universe. But Warhammer Fantasy, definitely Mordheim, and definitely the next game I'm going to talk about, which is Vermintide.
Now this one I have seen a lot of.
Oh my god, this game, I didn't get this game for a very long time because I kind of heard mixed reviews about it. That's because, I don't know if it's just because of the way it came out when it was released, or the bugs, or its current structure, what have you. But this game, it's basically, if you thought of Left 4 Dead in the Warhammer universe.
Yes.
And it is fun. I don't know if it's a good game or not, but it is fun as hell. I don't know what else I can really say about it. It is, you just go against this, there's this faction called the Skaven, which are basically just rat people. And they're...
the mice people.
Basically. And, if you remember Redwall? The book?
Yes.
Those are the Skaven. They're just badass rat warriors. And
Freaking awesome tiny creature warriors.
Exactly. And they're like one of the scourges of all the, let's just call them the good factions of Warhammer. Like dwarves, humans, elves. Is there anyone else in there I'm forgetting? No, like that's I think that's the races you play. But
right.
And it's just this game of, you have 4 different classes. You have a dwarf, you have a witch hunter, you have a, oh my god, pyromage, or like a fire mage, but I'm forgetting.
I was going to say, you have a guy whose head is on fire, according to the
what the hell is
screenshot.
that? They have a specific, I'm going to forget the magic lore, the lore book of it, but you have basically a fire caster, and then you have an elf ranger. And you just literally chop your way or shoot your way through these endless hordes of mice while you're trying to complete objectives. And the best thing about it is when you cut through something, you feel like you just butchered something. And it's like with the dwarf I play, he's usually typically my main. I play him with a sword and shield just mainly for crowd control, but you can play characters that have tool wielding like great swords or axes, and the lowliest little, like they're called Skaven slaves, that are just little one-hit things. You could wind up and just swing through a crowd of them, and your armor's covered in blood, your blade's covered in blood. You see their heads and limbs just kind of go flying, but in a manner that makes sense, not just like, oh, he ragdoll physics away. It's just so, it's like Warhammer goodness. That's all I can think about. It's just
yum yum yum.
It's as bloody and as enjoyable as you can imagine. And it's just like, it's a game where I would, if I knew people that played it, I would probably play it constantly, because it's wacky, it's fun, it's just like the little. This is one of those ones.
This is one of those ones I remember coming out and being like, it's sort of a similar thing. Like if I had people and if I had time to play this would be a fun one to get. So maybe.
And it just actually creeped back up into the limelight because it's now being ported over to console for the very first time ever. It just got an Xbox One and a PS4 release date. I think it's coming up actually very soon. So I don't think they're going to do cross-platform support, but this is now going into console, and
that's cool. Good for it.
Yeah, I mean, and it has expansions along with it, and it has the endless horde modes. It has its standard I wouldn't say story missions, but there's standard missions, as well as you get all this different type of gear, and you can unlock gear, and it's a fun game. It is just a guilty pleasure kind of game.
Yeah, and it almost in the way you're describing like the combat. That's why I liked Shadow Warrior. Is it was like, oh my god, this is so ridiculously gory and meaty and brutal and over the top. But what was the surprise, as I've said before about Shadow Warrior, is that, oh my god, this has actually kind of a nice story to it, like a shockingly pulls on your emotions, both in like, oh, this is kind of funny and fun and a little bit, I don't know, it's really hard to describe because it's sort of a little spoilery, but it's emotional. Yeah. It's an emotional story for this game about a guy named Lo Wang. Which is basically, that's my gaming experience in a nutshell. I want to be playing the game where I'm a completely offensive stereotype that's like, oh man, this is tugging on my heartstrings.
Yeah, but wrapped up in such a deep world with such a rich story.
Where you're chopping the heads off of demons and there's just blood pouring out. It's such a contradiction of a game, and I love it for that.
Yeah, but it's a game that's true to itself, and I think Vermintide, it's a game you play just to cut your way through hordes, and they have like specialty. They have like the assassin raft, which is basically like the hunter for Left 4 Dead. They jumps on top of you basically. It jumps on top of you and just starts stabbing you endlessly, and one of your friends has to knock them off of you. Then they have like Storm Vermin, which are just heavily armored guys that just beat the crap out of you. But it's fun because if you have a weapon that has armor piercing, if you swing at the guy's head and connect, you can basically one-shot one of these guys, which is interesting. Is the fact that you can plan your swings, you can aim your swings. I mean,
that's really cool.
You don't target it, but you can. Even as a dwarf, I'm like, hit him in the head one time, ting. Okay, I got him. And those things are kind of cool. And then like there's all the different little specialty rats, and then oh my god, the rat ogre. When a rat ogre comes out, it's kind of like the tank, titan, whatever they are called, brute in Left 4 Dead.
Oh yeah,
the big hulking things. Maybe they're called a hulk. I don't know.
The boomers?
No, not boomers. The guys who like can rip pavement out of the ground and throw them at people, and they're just like.
Oh, the brute, yeah,
or whatever they're called. When one of those comes out, it's like all hell just breaks loose because everyone's like, "Where is he coming from? Get to the corner! Oh my god! Okay, get your grenades ready. Throw your grenades!" And the best part is, you have no idea where in a board he will spawn because he can spawn kind of in various little spots. So you're just like, as soon as you kind of hear the roar, you're just like, shit, we're screwed. Because like sometimes it could be at the perfect time or it could be at the worst time. And like just those little things make this game just enjoyable. And that's just, it's another game where I don't play it a lot, but whenever I hop onto it, I'm never displeased. Like I don't know, it fits a need. And it's just a fun little game. Yeah, it's a game that I would definitely recommend to someone. I would probably more recommend it to someone on a sale versus full price. Unless you really love that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it's a good party game. It's a good, if you have a few friends and you just want to, waste a night or something, it's really good for that. I mean, even if you just wanted, let's put this on endless mode insane and let's just see how many minutes we can survive. Like, it's that type of game.
Cool. There's not enough of that. I love that.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a good game, and it's a game that I definitely would cover again, or if people wanted to see it, I definitely would just go on to it. But it's still a persistent game in the PC realm. I mean, people still play it enough where you can still find people to play with even randomly. But it's definitely a game that you would prefer to go on with a party.
Sure.
And Tom, what's in your little playlist this week?
Besides reaching level 41 in Star Wars The Old Republic, in basically a week's time. Look, to be fair, I do have a ton of experience boosters, and I've been trying to burn through them, so that has been contributing to my rapid ascension. But also, I feel really bummed, and this is a public open letter apology to Brian Dixon here, because we said, all right, let's play it. We'll play it together. We'll start together. We'll level up together. And unfortunately, it's just worked out that a lot of the time I have to play games is either early in the day when you're working or unable to play games, or about 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. So it's like, well, I'm back from what I did this evening, and it's 11 o'clock. Brian's probably at the end of his day, so I'll just play a little bit. And then all of a sudden, it's the sun's coming up. I'm just like, I love a game that I can love, and I don't know if it's because I play so many games, it stands out when there's one that I just love, but it's just so good. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Do you love this game as much as I do? Because I love it.
I mean, I definitely love the game. I mean, I do really enjoy the game. I think I'm enjoying Mass Effect 3 a little bit more, but it fulfills a different itch. So
to be fair, you're enjoying Mass Effect 3 the correct amount for someone who's playing Mass Effect 3 the first time.
Exactly. I mean, I'm into Mass Effect 3 like you're into Star Wars. If I didn't have Mass Effect 3, or if I actually played it back when I was supposed to play it, I probably would be about the same level as you, because I would probably be doing just as much with it.
Right. Yeah, and I just have been. I am really happy because I found a really sick set of armor pieces over my last few sessions. So I think my guy looks cool. I think that's really important, at least in an MMO, but in RPGs in general. If my guy looks cool, rather if my guy doesn't look cool, I'm constantly thinking about it. And that sounds really shallow when I put it that way. I think what I mean is if I'm looking at my guy and I'm like, I really hate that helmet. I'm always seeing it. It's always on my screen. So it's a 24/7 reminder of, I don't like that helmet. That helmet is just incongruous with my character. And so when I finally, a big push for me is finding the cool looking gear set. And once it looks cool, I love that, with MMOs, you can then transfer stats. You can look a certain way, but have the stats of a higher tier set of armor, And so it's like, all right, now my guy is trademarked. I've kind of figured out through dialogue what his personality is like. I've figured out how he deals with situations. He's a light side dick, basically. Oh, it was so funny. It's just like there was one point, I'm on Alderaan right now, and they're like, we've got to take down the Republic. They're putting into action Operation Sunlit Skies. And literally the dialogue option was, you guys are so fucking cheerful, it's disgusting. And it was just like, yay, that's my guy. That's the guy I'm role playing. He's just like, ew, you guys are annoying. Which is weird, because that's not the type of character I usually ever play. I'm usually the fairly altruist, fairly helpful, maybe will crack a joke, but doesn't try to offend people. And my guy has literally been, please, can you save my daughter? She's dying. If I have time. He'll do it, but his dialogue will always be, what's in it for me? I'll think about it. But at the end, he'll always fall on the light side, which is really funny, because your character constantly is like falling on the Sith option, the dark side option, rather. And it's led to some interesting moments where it's like, I think I'm okay with how they deal with it. When you're in a party and you're doing a mutual cutscene, it does a roll for dialogue options. Yep. So you both get to choose a dialogue option, and it does a random dice roll, and whoever gets the higher roll says their option. And that includes making a big decision. So say, for example, there was more than one situation where it was an option to basically shoot a guy in the head or not, and you did choose to shoot them. I chose not to. You won the dice roll, so I saw the cutscene of you shooting the person in the head and killing them. But what is cool is I still got my light side points, which contribute towards, further achievements and reputation things. So I don't know. How do you feel about that? I think I like it.
I like it. I mean, I feel like
I don't know how else really they could do it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's the right way of doing it. You kind of both feel like you're contributing to a conversation, but at the end of the day, ultimately you either move on to the next mission objective, which is going to happen regardless, but you still get to have the light or dark points that you're really looking for that really affect your character. So I like it. I mean, at least at that point, if you're in a party, you both feel like you're in the conversation together, unlike other MMOs. You both just walk up to the same quest guy, he gives you the quest, and you both walk away. At least This one, you have a combined interactions.
They did a good job of designing it so you do feel like the NPCs are addressing. They could be addressing you, or they could be addressing a pair of people, or however many are in your party. Although, I can't imagine what it's like when it has you've got a party of 4 people, and they all just kind of come up to one. It's just like, hi guys, can I help you? Are you just a wandering band of jolly adventurers? What's going on here? But bottom line is, I said this before and I'll say it again, there are so many reasons why Star Wars: The Old Republic is a perfect game for me. And I love MMOs, and this is a really good MMO. I love Star Wars, and this has fun with the Star Wars license. It's got a lot of stuff like, little homages and nods and things. I like the worlds. I like the map designs. Alderaan, that I'm, where I'm at right now, is really cool. I was just on Nar Shaddaa, which was like a big casino Blade Runner kind of world, and that felt really cool to be in. It's BioWare doing BioWare characters, so that feels cool. I actually get these moments of warmth, warm joy, thinking, this is a BioWare game. This is a Dragon Age-y type game. It's much more the Dragon Age side of BioWare than Mass Effect. Even though it's science fiction, the game plays like a Dragon Age game. Because Dragon Age played like an MMO. So, that makes sense. I'm kind of having some fun with the companion as a presence. She does make little quips here and there. That's one part that's not quite as BioWare as I would like. She'll occasionally say something when you walk into an area, but it's not the whole, oh, what's the dynamic between Alistair and Morrigan, or
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, companions are there.
I'm gonna go talk to.
Yeah, they're there just
Go on.
just to fulfill like kind of a combat companion role, and like you kind of get relationship points with them, but ultimately,
Yeah.
they're not gonna. Yeah, there definitely isn't a ton of interaction. I mean, like my story-based companion occasionally, like you saw that one time we got into a little spat. I mean, there are some interactions that are pre-planned, but ultimately, yeah, they just add some color to it.
Yeah, I mean, I love her presence as a healer. That does not go unwelcome, that's for sure. I basically have only had her spec'd as the healer, because you just choose, is your companion tank, healer, or DPS, and I've just had her be healing me constantly at all times. But I would like the game that's like that, where you actually have the, you know, okay, I finished that mission, what do you have to say about it? Ooh, what's this little interaction in this cantina, and she does something or whatever. But I'm hardly complaining. I think that's just one of the few things where it'd be like, oh, I missed that. But besides that, the only other thing that I really got to play, which I'm glad I got to play, was Paladins. Paladins is the developers of Smite. I cannot remember. Hi-Rez Studios doing a competitive shooter by way of Overwatch, by way of Battleborn, by way of Team Fortress 2. Obviously, it's funny how we bring up something in the beginning of the episode, like not even knowing, and it always comes back into play later on in the episode. So using a comparison point, Overwatch, it's hard not to hold it up to the mantle of Overwatch. It's hard not to hold it up to the mantle of TF2. It's funny how Overwatch has kind of surpassed TF2 as the comparison point a lot of people use. I mean, probably because it was justifiably very successful. It's a colorful cast of 4 basically classes. The classes are a bit weird. I might go into that a little bit later, but you have this is the tank class characters, and these are the attack class characters, and these are the support class, and then there's another one called flank, which is kind of sniper-ish. And I played a good 2 hours of this last Friday. I liked it. It was fun. It was fun to play. This is probably the first-person shooter where I had a 54 kill streak uninterrupted. So I'm hardly taking issue with that. I find it very difficult to complain about that. That's a neat little feather in my cap. But this, of course, when I was talking about Battlefield and kind of complaining about Battlefield 1, saying like, Jesus Christ, my KD was like 1 to 12 or 1 to 20, it just was feeling like horrible. And this was the complete flip side multiple times over. So I was like, okay, I am good at first person shooters, just some of them. It's hard to describe it without saying it's Overwatch, it's TF2. Okay, capture this point, move the payload. That's all that I ever did, were capture point, move payload ones. I don't know if there were other ones. I only did what felt like 3 different maps in the multiple rounds that I played. Mm-hmm. The cast of characters felt decidedly thin, a little bit limp. I mean, it does this big knight is your stereotypical Antonio Banderas Spanish lover. He's got the rose in his teeth, and he dances and things like that. The character I played a lot as was a support character called Pip, who looked like some sort of like Naughty Dog Insomniac games. Like, what kind of animal is that? I don't know, but he can talk. Like a wombat kind of. I don't know what to call him. And everyone has their left click fire ability, their right click a Q ability, and a sort of, when you press F, you have some kind of like enhanced mobility. So for like Pip, he could jump really high, really fast for a few seconds, and it's your quick escape. Like for some characters, it was a dodge roll. For one character, it's a warp, and it was good. It's currently free. A lot of the comments I saw said this is basically like store brand Overwatch. And I hate to say it, but that is a dead-on assessment. It is like, don't want to shell out the $60 for Overwatch, but want to play Overwatch? Have we got the game for you? And it does. It's good. It's actually, it's fun. It was really fun. If I didn't have Overwatch, it'd probably be even more fun. Are there things that Overwatch does better? Yeah. It's obviously got a bigger budget. It's got more going into it, much more tightly honed. This didn't really have anything to set it apart. There wasn't any reason why I would recommend this over another one. It's sort of pick the one that you like and play it. I'm sure people will play this, especially because it's free. It is really well done. I think technically, this is still beta test because there were some placeholder graphics. Oh, okay. One thing that it does have that's a little bit unique is there's a bit of a card system. It's not huge. It's not robust. But much like Paragon, the other P game made by MOBA people, much like Paragon, but far more lightweight. Basically, you have a set of cards, I think, going into the match, which is your skills. And they're kind of passive upgrades, like you will just have 20% more damage overall with your left click ability as this character. But then as you play, you are earning points so that when you go back to the spawn point after you die, or if you willingly go back there, which you probably won't, you can then choose from your cards. And you have 4 types of cards, and you can basically choose one of each of these types, and one will be like sort of like I said before, but a more active one, like damage boost overall, or 20% shields to AoE damage. And as you continue to play, you can either switch out those cards or upgrade the strength of those 4 cards that you've picked, maximum 4 cards. It's okay.
Do you feel like it really gives you a competitive edge if you get the right card?
No. It didn't feel tide-turning at all. It didn't feel really substantial. I mean, I did feel a little bit like I very quickly fell into a rhythm of, well, these are my 4. It was like, just from the way that I personally play, it's like, one was movement speed increase, one was damage increase, one was damage reduction from direct attacks, and I can't remember what the 4th one was. But it'll be things like, heals faster or things like that. Or, like I said, movement speed increase. But where I think that was their kind of way of saying you can change your strategy mid-game, because you can't change your character mid-game. So if, like, the team is just doing a whole bunch of AoE damage, maybe you could coordinate and say, okay, everyone, when we die, switch your cards to be the one that protects against AoE damage. And I'm sure that there's something to be said for that, but that's where something like TF2 or Overwatch, you're like, oh, this is happening, I'm going to switch to this character now, I'm going to switch to this class now because the situation calls for it.
Yeah, that's one thing they did brought up when we were talking about it, was the fact that you lock in a character for a match. So is it... Do you get that the Overwatch chance to build a team prior to like locking in, or do you just kind of lock in and then what you get is what you get?
You are building a team. You do have the, you have 10 seconds to choose your character, and you're seeing who everyone's picking on your team. You probably can coordinate, but I did not get any... Now, this is something that was another disadvantage of this one. I didn't get any sense at all of character synergies. I had no idea. Like, the character I was playing as, Pip, right? He's a support character, so I thought, okay, I know support. I'll heal my teammates, and I like playing support when I'm first going into a game as well, because it lets me kind of survey a game from afar before going into the fray. Like, no, you guys go ahead, you do tank and damage, I'll just heal and watch, this first few times around. But besides, like, one healing flask, I was cleaning up every match with gold medals for highest damage, most objective time. I mean, yes, I do this as Lucio in Overwatch too, yeah. But this should not be the case for support characters. This is, I guess, this is a personal
kill streak.
Yeah, this is a personal bugbear of mine. I'm the healer. I should be way in the back with the snipers, if anything, or in the fray of combat, but not the vanguard. And I was the guy who was taking the objective all the way to the, or taking the payload all the way to the objective. I was the guy who was doing as according to the end game results, the most damage on the team, getting the most kills on the team, highest kill streaks. I was like, really, guys? And I don't know if... we talked about this with Battlefield. If there's like transferable skill, like I'm an active FPS player. I'm an active, not recently, but active Overwatch player. So are those skills just immediately transferring here, where these other people maybe have not, because this is a free game, maybe they don't play FPSs a lot. This is new to them. I don't know. But it was this weird feeling of, and I don't get to say this a lot, so allow me this chance to gloat, feeling like the only person in the room who knew what they were doing. It was just kind of like, that way, guys, over there, see that thing? Go stand near it. Go stand on that point. Nope, where are you going? All right, I, the healer, will stand there. And what ended up happening was I ended up just healing myself more than anyone else. Because it's just like, okay, I need this. They don't. They're not even in combat.
Do you feel like Paladins has as bad of a learning curve as Overwatch does in terms?
No, I think that you're able to get into it pretty quickly. I do think because of its lighter weight. You like if you start Overwatch and you just like spontaneously pick like Symmetra, you'd be like, what the hell am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know the first thing of like how to manage that character. You have to spend time getting to know her. Or even someone like Zarya, you'd be like, I don't quite understand what my role is here. And you can't, besides Soldier 76 or Reaper or people like that, you can't quickly pick up what's going on with Overwatch characters. Even Lucio has a learning curve.
But in Paladins, it seems like everyone has a skill set that you could easily just log on and be like, yep, I know exactly how to do this guy.
Yeah. It took me 2 seconds to realize that Pip basically shoots out something that does splash damage. He lobs... Technically what he's doing is he's lobbing a damaging flask, like a poison flask. And just like, I literally, like I said, 2 times in 2 shots, I was like, okay, that does AoE damage. Cool. Because I could just see it. It did translate visually. That was a literal area of impact when that thing landed after shooting it. Okay. And of course other characters, like the guy who I said is like the Antonio Banderas lover kind of character. He's Reinhardt. He puts up a giant shield, but nobody was standing behind the shield. He just was kind of like putting it up and like walking forward and then getting in close quarter combat with somebody instead of like pushing or being in front of the payload. Or anything. Yeah. And that was one of the only abilities that I saw that was immediately like, oh, I see how this is a team ability. I did play one round as an archer character, and her kind of special ability is identifying everyone on the map, sort of like Widowmaker's does. But the maps are small. They're very, very tight, and more often than not, you can see everybody. And so it was just kind of like highlighting people who were already in my vision.
So it really didn't give you much of an actual like advantage.
Right. And I don't know if they had larger maps maybe, but like these just felt like the choke points were very obvious. The nobody was taking really any secret avenues to an objective where you would be like, "Oh, there's a guy that's like there's a sniper up there or something like that." So, I don't know. I can't really say it's something that's like fixable. I think that's just the design of the game. It's not as team-based. If you're looking for an Overwatch where you can be more of a lone wolf, this is it.
Now, obviously for the price point of free, do you think it's worth it? Or is it a game that you would just kind of like play once, feel like, yep, I'm good, and just kind of forget about it and just go play Overwatch?
Well, I actually, when I played it, I played it twice this weekend. When I first played it on Friday, I finished thinking, I liked that. I think I'll play that again. And I did, and I played it the one other time just to kind of get some further opinions for this podcast. and then after a point, I was just kind of like, I think I've seen this now, and I'll probably, myself personally, I'll probably uninstall it. If I didn't have the plethora of competitive team-based first-person shooters, let alone Overwatch, if I didn't have the ones that I did have, I would probably really like this. I do think that if you are slightly interested in it, check it out.
Like I said, it can't hurt. The price is great right now.
Yeah, it's good. It's good in a what's the word? In a field where there are games that are great at it.
It's the nice little middle ground that you don't have to go all the way.
Yeah, it's certainly not like, oh, they tried. Like I never played it, but I got the impression that Battleborn, the one that came out that was like Overwatch at the same time as Overwatch by Gearbox, I got the impression that that wasn't actually that good. That there were people who were like, I don't really actually like this game. This is good. This is likable. It's fun. It's colorful. It's funny. It doesn't seem like it's trying too hard. It's got that kind of same aesthetic as Overwatch. It's a little bit Pixar cartoony. Ran very well. Felt good to control. It certainly felt smooth to control. It wasn't like the gunplay didn't feel bad or anything.
Is it good enough to get by, but it's not going to make anyone write home?
Probably not. There's going to be probably a devoted, we're in an age where we have like 4 major MOBAs. So there's probably room for 3 or 4 major competitive first-person shooters.
No, that makes sense.
I think it could find its own niche and probably exist, and maybe even have a small esports following. I don't know. I don't really know how esports work with competitive FPS.
And I guess it all depends on what the developers really want for the game. If they want it to just be what it is, then probably not. But if they want to actually make it a living thing,
it was really funny.
Who knows?
Yeah. It's funny because I got an email, when I signed up, and they do the whole, yes, you've been, you're now a member of this website, and we can send you unsolicited emails all the time.
Hooray.
And it was like, this is High Res Studios. We made Smite, and Smite is a popular MOBA. And then it was like, we also have made such and such, and it was like a sci-fi MMO I've never heard of. I was like, wow, I didn't know that they had they're managing a popular MOBA and a science fiction MMO, as well as now adding this in. So I guess kudos for them. They do know what they're doing. Yeah. But, I think even if I didn't have Star Wars The Old Republic just lingering over my shoulder like this leering Wookiee, just like, you should probably play me now. I was like, yeah, I'll definitely do that. I'm going to definitely do that. I probably would have played maybe a little bit more of this because it was fun, but I don't know. It's good. It's very good.
Hey, if you want to shoot some things with a cover character that's not Overwatch, it's free.
Yeah.
It takes you. It's a real small game too. It doesn't take up much space either. It's worth a shot. It's low risk. Who knows?
Yeah. I'd be curious to know if you got a chance to play it, what your thoughts were.
I have it downloaded. I might have a chance to play it, so maybe we'll see it episode 12 of Addicted to Loot. Hashtag addictedtoloot.weebly.com.
Yeah, you can also find Addicted to Loot on a whole bunch of other places. How's that for a segue? We also have an email address. That is addictedtoloot@gmail.com.
You can reach us there for comments, questions, concerns. You want to be a featured guest on one of our podcasts? Let us know. That is our All Things Addicted to Loot inquiry email.
Yeah. We're also on Twitter @addicted2loot. That's the number 2. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We have a Twitch account.
It's still there. It has yet
It's
to
still
be
there.
touched since the last time we did the Division. So
It's in a vegetative state, but
it's there. You can go on and see the pretty little bird that's being a placeholder right now.
Yeah. You can subscribe to us. Oh, yeah, that's right. We have that bird. You can subscribe to us through iTunes, through Stitcher, through SoundCloud, and we have individual Twitters. I am at Tomality, T-O-M-A. Let me try that
Blah, blah,
again.
blah.
I am at Tomality. Tomality. Spelled the way it sounds. Tomality. T-O-M-A-L-I-T-Y.
Don't forget the silent Q. And then
And silent Q.
I'm at fifth, FITH_atomic0, no spaces.
And this has been a condensed episode of Addicted to Loot.
Thank you for joining us. Please drop us a comment, like, subscription. Who knows? We are happy to hear from you. But until then,
We accept cookies.
all sorts of things. But until then, we have been Addicted to Loot. See you at episode 12.